This episode of the MLB Guardcast is sponsored by Sadnap Studios. Are you in need of assistance when it comes to digital arts, logo creation, website design, brand building, or designing merch? Then look no further than Sadnap Studios. The team at Sadnap Studios wants to help and make your dreams into reality. Everything is original and organically created, nothing AI. You can follow them and check out some of their incredible work on Instagram at sadnap_studios_art drop. Thanks again to the folks at Sadnap Studios. Go Guards. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is time for another episode of the MLB Guardcast, episode number 43. I am Mike Vorhies. With me, as always, AAA player now for the Cincinnati Reds, also meteorologist, statistician extraordinaire, Bryan Shaw. Bryan, it's warm. We're close to baseball. We're getting there.
We are a little over a week away from the opening day. I know we have an international game first that kind of kicks off the season, but for the Guardians, we're looking at a little over a week, and I'm going to be heading to Arizona here soon to see the last few games of spring training, which I'm excited about, and then it's the real deal.
It's the real deal. Well, without further ado, we have a guest, fantastic guest, a returning guest. He is the radio play-by-play broadcaster for the Akron Rubberducks. Friend of the show, Marco LaNave. Marco, welcome, sir. How are you?
Thank you guys for having me. I'm doing quite well. Gosh, it's hard to believe we're so close to baseball season again, but it's a fun time.
Marco,
And are you in?
So
go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
Are you still in Arizona, Marco, or are you back here?
I have returned. I am back in Northeast Ohio, getting ready for the season at Canal Park in downtown Akron.
Perfect.
And when do the Rubberducks officially kick off at home?
So we are just 3 weeks away from the home opener, which will be Tuesday, April 8th. If you want to catch the Guardians home opener, you can go to theirs first and then come to ours as part of a fun day of baseball. And the Ducks will open their season officially on the road on Friday, April 4th. At Richmond against the AA for the San Francisco Giants, the Richmond Flying Squirrels.
Still one of the better minor league baseball names. I love the Flying Squirrels. I believe there's a Trash Panda still. There's a team that's still my ultimate favorite. I love it. Well, Marco, we know the Rubberducks. They're going to have a very talented star at least start the season with them, and that would be number 1 draft pick, Travis Bazzana, second baseman. How excited are you to see him at Canal Park?
Well, I will say, first of all, qualifying this with the fact that as we record this, we've not received official word that he's coming here. But with that being said, I am very excited for when he does get to Akron and Canal Park. I'm excited to see him perform. Got to see him at the spring breakout game as part of the Guardians prospects roster last week, March 14th against the Seattle Mariners, and plenty of excitement, amazing talent, and gosh, what kind of impact he had for Lake County, his first professional stop, winning a championship there and providing some great moments, and just seeing him and from a distance. I haven't had a chance to interact with him personally yet, but I'm looking forward to what seems like a fun, professional human being and a baseball player.
Marco, would you say Bazzana is maybe the most anticipated prospect, at least position player wise, since maybe Francisco Lindor?
Gosh, I think that's probably fair to say as far as coming through Akron. I mean, it's unprecedented, obviously, to have the number 1 overall pick playing in an Akron Rubberducks uniform, because Cleveland hasn't had that number 1 overall pick in history before. So, yeah, I think it's fair to say that he would be up there. And they've had some great first round picks come through here through the years. Bo Naylor being one. I think before I got here, there was Bradley Zimmer and Clint Frazier who came and were part of championship teams. So, but I think Travis Bazzana and the buzz that he's received across the baseball landscape, um, probably at the top of the list since we rebranded to the Akron Rubberducks in Francisco Lindor's second year with.
I remember that. I remember being at Canal Park, seeing Francisco Lindor and being like, wow, this dude's going to be really, really special. I cannot wait. And now I feel the same way about Travis, and I'm sure the fanfare is going to follow. Obviously, Akron does a phenomenal job with their promotions, with their fireworks night. I live in Akron, probably 10 minutes from the stadium, and I can tell you when it's fireworks night. Not just because people are posting stuff about potential gunshots. They don't realize that there's a minor league team in Akron that has fireworks pretty often throughout the season. So, Marco, what are you looking forward to most this year at Canal Park?
Well, the excitement of baseball on the field, that's a big draw for me. I'm excited about that. I'm excited for how the city of Akron gets to celebrate this year. It's the bicentennial for the city of Akron. Pretty amazing to celebrate a 200th birthday. And I'm excited for how the Rubberducks are taking that on with some, promotions and different ways to celebrate that. And I think that'll make for a really, really fun summer here. And looking forward to seeing baseball back on the field and fans back inside Canal Park and the energy that comes with that. We're going to be unveiling some ballpark improvements as part of our media day on Wednesday, April 2nd, that I think people will be excited to learn about when those get publicized. So, stay tuned. There's more to come as we get ready for Rubberduck season. We're always looking to, improve the fan experience, just make things, smoother, throughout the ballpark. And I think people will notice that, certainly coming back to Canal Park this April.
Yeah, Marco, speaking of the bicentennial, you've got some unique bobbleheads scheduled for this year to go along with the bicentennial. The Rubberducks always do a good job bringing in some of those more interesting ones, unique ones. The Shawshank Redemption ones. I think there was some ones that go with The Office and things like that. Tell us a little bit about this bobblehead lineup that you got going on.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the connection to Akron history. Well, Simon Perkins, one of the founders of Akron, he's going to be highlighted Saturday, May 24th. That will be going into the summer, that Memorial Day weekend, the Saturday there. We're going to be celebrating the 100-year anniversary of the Goodyear blimp, then with the T-shirt Tuesday on June 3rd. Lots of T-shirts to celebrate different ways that Akron has contributed. We'll also celebrate Judy Resnick with a bobblehead on Saturday, July 5th. I think that will be really cool. Excited to honor one of Akron's own as part of that, and then Rita Dove, who's the first African American to serve as Poet Laureate of the United States from Akron. We are celebrating her with a bobblehead on Saturday, August 23rd. So plenty of fun and close connections to Akron history and some key Akron figures.
I love it. I think it's fantastic. I look forward to the release of the promotional calendar every year for the Rubberducks. You guys do such a phenomenal job. Obviously, Marco, you have a few roles for the Akron Rubberducks. Do you get to know these ahead of time? Like, are you involved in some of that decision making, or you just get to find out like when we do, the public?
So I do get a chance to be part of the process. What we do with promotions, there are some who are working further in advance, thinking of our vice president of entertainment, Christina Gunter, and her colleague Peyton Letty, who work in promotions and community relations specifically. They're working ahead along with our general manager, Jim Fander, and others who really contribute intensively to that process. We as a staff also get to have input. Even ideas from fans have come up. There's a couple of rebrands this year, the Galley Boys and the cheese salads, and people from Akron will know exactly what we're talking about with both of those. And I remember getting an email, I think it was the season of 2023, which is, over a year and a half ago now. Somebody said, "Oh yeah, the Galley Boys, that would be a great one to do." So we listen to fans, and that's part of the process too. And then during the off season, we get together weekly and talk about promotions, and not just, hey, what are the headliners that are going to be happening? We're going to publish on the schedule that you can see online, and here's the big attraction of the ballpark. But yeah, how do we do it better? How do we present a different in-game contest? How do we refresh a theme night? What are some other things that we could do? And the bicentennial celebration is one that had been circled, even years ahead on the calendar. And we had the opportunity to talk with Dave Lieberth, who's a great local historian. He came and presented to our group at our staff retreat last fall, and has so many great, pieces of information on Akron history, Akron individuals, and all of us were just trying to soak this up. Like, what could we pull out? What could we celebrate? There's too much to, pack it all into the 69 home games that we've got. But I think we highlighted some very unique things, and it'll make for a real nice tribute to this city, this community, and the place we call home.
Speaking of Galley Boys, now I'm hungry. So thanks for that, Marco. Swenson's might be
you're welcome.
On the plan for tonight. Might have
what
to
are
go
those
to
commercials out there?
Weekend.
Those commercials out there that are saying, football is designed to sell food to you or
Oh,
something.
those are so funny.
Yes,
I mean, minor
great.
league baseball. I mean, we're not even trying to hide it. There's ways to get excited about food for sure.
That media day for the Akron Rubberducks last year, some of the best food I've ever tasted. That was incredible. I'm excited for this year's media day as well. I'm a huge fan of. I love that it's in Akron. I love that it's right up the street. Affordable family fun. Like, the Rubberducks are so fun. But for you, Marco, like, you got to call. You talked about it a little earlier about the spring breakout game. Yourself, Jim Rosenhaus, aka Rosie, and Jim Clark. You guys got to call a spring breakout game. Talk me through that a little bit. What was that like for you? I know you've done it. I think this is Is this year 2, 3 that you've done
this
that?
is year 3, yeah, for getting to go down to Goodyear for me. Jim Clark had done it a few years earlier, and this was pretty cool. This was the first time we did one major league game with Rosie, Jim Clark, and myself. That was the first time the three of us had done a game together. And then Jim Clark and myself joined Logan Petoskey, who's the voice of the Lake County Captains, and called the championship team last year. And it was such a fitting occasion that they had the Lake County Captains Midwest League Championship ring ceremony right before the spring breakout game that featured so many captains, plenty of captains who were Rubberducks by season's end, and many other Rubberducks who spent the year with Akron as well in the majority. So that was sort of a perfect combination for those of us in the minor leagues who have seen so many of these players. Nobody had made it above Double-A Akron on the roster, so it was just appropriate that we get to cover the game, and very thankful to the Cleveland Guardians, Jim Rosenhaus, Curtis Danberg, and many others who made it possible for us to do this. And the Rubberducks ownership and leadership, Ken Babby and Jim Fander, made it possible for Jim and myself to travel down there. So what a cool experience. I mean, spring training is kind of a baseball playground, if you will. There's 15 teams that are in one major metropolitan area in Phoenix, Arizona, and you can go around and visit those ballparks. And going into Cleveland's complex, it's fun because everybody's there under one roof. From major league players who have been Rubberducks alumni to minor league players who, are recent Rubberducks or will be Rubberducks soon, to the coaching staffs that we've had over the years, and all of the different coordinators and front office mean, you just see everybody right there, and there's lots of excitement for the upcoming season. And you can just walk from the major league side to the minor league side and see it all unfold there. And yeah, just a great opportunity and reasons to be excited about the upcoming season for sure. The talent that's at the major league level already, obviously a team that contended for the AL pennant last year, and on the minor league side, many top prospects that we saw in that spring breakout, and guys that nobody's heard of now, but by the season's end, they will be discussed as the up and coming wave of Cleveland talent in the player development system.
Well, speaking of, hearing of, I'm sure a lot of fans, their focus is more on the major league team and maybe some of the AAA players. But you had the spring breakout game. Everybody knows about Travis Bazzana being the number one overall pick. But is there anybody in that spring breakout game or any other names that in spring training you're saying this guy's got a future. This guy has a lot of potential, or anybody standing out to you?
Yeah, so if you look at the spring breakout game and some of the performances there, it's a small sample size, but I think based on having seen them and know a little bit of their track record too, Parker Messick, who started that game for Cleveland's prospects, he did a great job. 3 scoreless innings, worked out of a little bit of trouble here and there, but really pitched well, and he's one who contributed to both Lake County and Akron's runs last season. Austin Peterson and Matt Tugboat Wilkinson, who are both names that people are learning a little bit more, pitched at Lake County last year. Peterson came up to Akron, and maybe we'll see Tugboat at some point in Akron this year. Both of those guys, again, pitched in that game and were fun to see. I was very impressed by the young lineup that Cleveland rolled out onto the field. Guys that haven't made it to Akron yet, but and some of them haven't even reached their 20s yet. But Ralphie Velasquez, the first baseman and outfielder, also Wellbeing Francisca, who he had a really nice at bat and came up, broke the scoreless tie with a big 2-run double. He hasn't even made it up to Lake County yet. He was an exciting one to watch. And Jason Churio, who also has yet to make it to Lake County, he had a nice night as well. And just to see those guys put together the kind of at-bats they did against a couple of more veteran pitchers from the Seattle organization. I say veteran because they've made it to a higher level and maybe a little bit more polished. But yeah, it was impressive to see those Guardians prospects put it together. As far as other prospects to take note of, one who was, I think, recently optioned to AAA, at least for now, to start the season. Doug Nikhazy, I know, was putting together a pretty impressive spring for Cleveland. A year ago, he was the starting pitcher in that breakout game. Then he came to Akron, and he was at the best that we'd seen him in the parts of 3 seasons here, and earned a promotion to Columbus, and then had a great campaign there. So, a lefty who can fire it in there and has some great breaking balls, curveball, slider, and really has refined his arsenal, refined his approach and his pitching. And who knows, maybe he's one that, again, can impact the Guardians, because we know that the opening day roster, in terms of pitching, they will need probably twice that many over the course of the season.
Yeah, I think I had looked it up earlier when we had spoke to Rosie. I think there was 11 guys that made at least 3 starts last year or something along those lines, or at least 2 starts. So yeah, Cleveland typically needs to be pretty deep. I mean, when you get that deep, usually it's because of injury, and we hope we don't have that case. But Mike and I have talked about how deep it does seem that they wanted to make this rotation this year, and the kind of guys that are going to start off in AAA. You're still going to have Joey Cantillo in probably AAA, and maybe Logan Allen in AAA, and you mentioned Nikhazy. So there's the potential for it to be pretty deep as it comes up. And then, the joke of the pitching factory, or the name of the pitching factory, Messick could be kind of that next guy, as you mentioned, starting the spring breakout game.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to watch. And now I think I'm a little more used to it, having been in this organization now for over 6 years. It's like, where do they get all these pitchers from? They keep identifying them through scouting. They keep drafting them, signing them, developing them through player development. It's really impressive what they can do. with those guys.
Well, I know Stephen Vogt had a lot of positive things to say about Doug Nikhazy. Wants him to be a starter. I know there was talk about him potentially being another lefty in the bullpen, and Stephen Vogt's like, no, we're gonna stretch him out. We want him as a starter. He's gonna go to AAA, and I have a feeling he'll be the number one at AAA, and he's gonna be one of those guys that we will keep our eye on. He's gonna end up helping the Guardians in some way, shape, or form, because again, we know that we're one injury away from picking up the phone and making a call to Columbus. Hey, we need an arm. So Doug's one. Messick is so good. I've seen him pitch. He looks really, really good. I know that a lot of the focus on the minor league stuff is Travis, and everybody is so excited. But Marco, aside from Travis, who's one player you're really looking forward to seeing at Canal Park this year?
Well, again, we don't know for sure what the roster
Right.
will be, but Bazana certainly. Yeah, I'm interested to see how some of these guys come back to Akron as well. I think of like CJ Kafis, who had such a great campaign to start, and I think it seemed like the long season maybe caught up with him with some of the numbers toward the end of the year, but the talent is there. He's got an excellent approach. Maybe we don't even see him at Akron to start the year. Who knows? He's played a lot in Major League spring training, so I'm curious to see how he comes back. I would say Cooper Ingle, who got a taste of Double-A ball last year, the last couple months. I mean, he was right at the top of our lineup. He was the leadoff hitter as soon as he arrived from Lake County, and he won the Midwest League MVP for his performance as a captain before he even got to Double-A Akron, and showed some of his talent there. Those are a couple that were key to the Ducks getting into the postseason. I'm interested to see how Petey Halpin performs. He's been with the Rubberducks the last 2 years, so maybe we don't even see him in Akron this year. But I know last season battling a little bit of a wrist issue and had surgery on that in the off season. Seeing him at spring training was pretty great. He was in that spring breakout game, but also got to see him earlier in the week, and the excitement, the energy was very positive for him. Looked like he is feeling healthy and excited for the upcoming season. So I think it'll be fun to see where he comes out. Cody Huff, a catcher who has been with the Guardians in Major League spring training, got to talk to him as well. And, he's really become more integrated with the organization now. Last offseason, he was traded over from Colorado. So now his second spring training with the Guardians. I mean, he is close with Bo Naylor and Austin Hedges in terms of, getting to pick their brains and information sharing, that sort of thing. It'll be fun to see how he takes a stride forward because, I mean, they asked a lot of him last year coming in, kind of being the primary catcher in Double-A after not catching above Single-A in the Rockies organization. So he was skipping a level. He was jumping ahead. He was jumping into a new organization. It'll be fun to see how it all comes together for him this year as well. And then from a pitching standpoint, I would have to say, Tugboat. We've heard about him and that sort of thing. When he gets to Akron, whenever that happens, I think that will be very exciting as well, because the numbers and the performance that he's put together in the minor leagues really speak for itself, and now he's really on the map when it comes to prospects and minor league baseball. So I think that'll be exciting as well.
And he's had a little bit of a cult following, I think, the last couple of years. People are going to be excited to see him. Mike, if you don't have anything else, I'd like to move on to the big league club and play a little bit of a game.
Yes,
okay. So obviously spring training, small sample size here. We've had about 2 weeks ish of at bats and in games played. And, so guys are working on things, they're working on approaches, they're working on, maybe refining a pitch. So you got to take the stats with a little bit of a grain of salt, but we're not going to do that today. We are going to make declarations of the season. I'm somewhat joking, but I want to rattle off some stats of some things and some things that our players are doing. And I want to get your perspective on, does it matter? Should we take it seriously, or should we not worry about it? Okay.
So is this like real deal or not, or make a big deal,
Yeah,
or
should we make a big
what's
deal
the
out
question?
about it? Should we read
Okay.
into it, or should we just brush it off and like, nah, let's not worry about that one.
All
This is going to
right.
be completely subjective. However you want to feel about it, you're allowed to feel about it. And the first one is Kyle Manzardo, 173 WRC plus. Should we take that seriously? Is that a big deal?
I say get excited about that. I mean, Manzardo's one who, you know, um, highly heralded coming into the organization. I mean, a year ago there was excitement about him. Does he make it onto the big league roster? At what point does he come? So I think, yeah, get excited about it.
Okay, I like that. Now on the other side, Carlos Santana, a 397 OPS.
Carlos Santana, I wouldn't make anything out of those spring training numbers. His big league track record speaks for itself.
All right,
We
a
can't
next
diss
one.
Slam Tana. We can't diss Slam Tana. Not yet. Not yet.
Right. But
No.
there are people that are concerned because, he is like the same age as me and uh and so they're worried about, is that a sign of his aging, but it does sound like he's in really good shape. So I just wanted to bring it up, ones that, ones are we what stats are we taking seriously and what stats are we not worrying about? So the next one, Gavin Williams being atop of the whiff rates in spring training so far.
I would like to get excited about that. Gavin Williams is one that was battling injury last year. Listening to some of his interviews in spring training and some of the coaching staff talking about him, they talk about a change in demeanor, approach, stuff. So maybe I'm putting more than just the numbers into it, but I think there's reason to get excited about that.
Yeah, I've watched some of his performances and seen some of the advanced analytics so far in spring. And like you said, with the injury last year, it really feels like could be a breakout season for him. So really excited to see that kind of happening. Then on the other side, a new acquisition for the team, Luis Ortiz with a 12.66 ERA so far this spring. What do you make of that?
What do I make of that? I think this is very much an adjustment period for Ortiz. Getting into a new organization, and the pitching department in Cleveland, we know, is so great. They're great at identifying talent. They're great at developing talent. But it takes time to get your hands on, a guy and, work on some different things with him. So I think that's very much a sign of, hey, it's a work in progress, that sort of thing. It will be curious, as we're talking here on March 18th, and we're less than 10 days now from opening day. If he has a very poor outing or two still yet this spring, does that put him in jeopardy of not being in the starting rotation, which I think is something that people kind of expected when he was the big yield from the Andres Jimenez trade, multiple trades, and how those deals went. So that will be interesting to follow, is whether he does get a spot in that rotation, because I think the thought was coming in that, yeah, he's going to slot into one of those top five to start the year.
Yeah, and speaking of another guy that was probably expected to slot into the starting rotation because he's out of options, Tristan McKenzie also has a kind of highish ERA at 8.18 to start off. His first appearance, he had the very first appearance of spring training, looked good in that one, but then a little shaky in the next one. Um, have you had a chance to watch him? How's he feeling? Do you think he'll make the rotation out of camp?
That's an interesting question, and that may be one that we don't know until close to the end of spring training. He was sent down midway through last season, as fans know, and then didn't come back. So he has, he's coming with something to prove, and I think there's a little bit of a case of, yeah, still working on some things and seeing how some of his, off-season work and adjustments will play, that sort of thing. Um, how much, if he was having excellent numbers, like Gavin Williams like numbers, I think there would be a lot of excitement about him getting into the rotation. But at this point, I think it's probably hard to say based on those numbers what will end up happening. And down at spring training, Stephen Vogt talked about, as you're looking at performance, whether it's for the second base position or starting rotation or bullpen or that sort of thing, he said more than just the in-game performance goes into these decisions. What are the processes that these guys are following, and what is happening off the field, the preparation, the work that's being done, how are they approaching it, what do they look like in that sense, and they take in a lot of information there as well to factor into that decision for McKenzie and for plenty of others too.
Yeah, you kind of read my mind here because I wanted to go back on the positive note. And speaking of the second base spot, Tyler Freeman, a 148 WRC plus in spring training. What do we make of Tyler Freeman? And is that something that we should get excited about?
Yeah, so I think that it's reason to get excited. You know, Freeman is one who, even since we saw him in Double A Akron 4 years ago, very gifted hitter, very smart ball player. You saw him impact the major league club, as the starting center fielder to jump off in 2024. And now there's an opportunity. He's proven that he can play the outfield. We know his background is in the infield. So to put him, into the Guardians, opening day roster, certainly he's, you know, based on those numbers, looking pretty strong in spring. I'm curious as to how the rhythm of playing time impacts his game, because it is so hard. And Stephen Vogt has talked about that, since he took over as manager. He knew what it was like in his big league career to be asked to all of a sudden, hit against major league pitching once every 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, once a week. When you're asked to do that, and you maybe don't have a solidified spot on the field, but you're expected to go in and perform. So he knows the challenge of that. And Tyler Freeman and really everybody gets more of a regular pattern of playing in spring training. Hey, you're playing, every other day, roughly, maybe, or 2 out of every 3 or 3 out of every 5, something like that. So you're getting into a rhythm, when you're playing and that sort of thing. But once the regular season hits, there is that separation. Guys who are going to be playing every day and guys who have to be ready to play, but may not get as many opportunities.
And then staying at second base and someone who you may be pretty familiar with as well. I think a lot of people expected Juan Brito to take hold of this second base spot in the offseason after the Jimenez trade. He's struggled a little bit so far this spring, only batting 133. Is that something that we should be concerned about? Or did you expect that maybe he was probably going to need a little bit of time in AAA to warm up? We always hear those kinds of things with rookies that Tito always used to say, well, I don't like playing guys in April in Cleveland. It's too cold here, and we want to start them off strong in Columbus, and then we'll call them up when they're hot. Is that the trend that was likely for Brito?
Yeah, he's an interesting question, and I think with those numbers, yeah, maybe some folks are thinking, well, maybe it's not quite the time is right for him to get an opportunity yet in the major leagues. But I think there is something different about spring training. Humans play this game, right? And they're aware that this is a different kind of spring training for Juan Brito than a year ago. A year ago you get to be around the major leaguers, but there's kind of no pressure. Nobody expects that you're going to go win a job, but there's going to be some pleasant surprise. I would say look at the trajectory of a player like Bryan Rocchio. Rocchio got bits and pieces here and there of chances to play, and was having great success at AAA a couple of years ago, but it really took until this 24 season, and took time for him to be ready to take hold of that shortstop job. And now, that postseason performance certainly, solidified it, for fans at least, that, oh yeah, he's certainly going to be the guy at shortstop. Whereas a year ago, no, that wasn't a certainty at all.
Oh,
So
even at times in like August and September, I was at a couple of games that he was hearing
yeah,
it from the crowd, and then things completely turned around in the postseason. You're right. All right, Marco, well, we have to wrap up here. So thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciated the insight, and happy to hear that you've got some exciting things going on down in Akron, and with the players, the ballpark, the promotions, all of that stuff.
thank you guys. Thank you, Bryan. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you having me, and looking forward to seeing you at Canal Park this year. Go Rubberducks, go Guardians.
Yeah, go Rubberducks, go Guardians. Mike, where can people find you?
On Facebook and Twitter at Mike Vorhies. Bryan, where can they find you and us?
I am WXSHAW Weather Shaw on Twitter. On X, we are MLB Guardcast on Facebook. Bryan Shaw on Facebook. We're on Spotify. We're on YouTube. Marco, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can visit the Akron Rubberducks website for the broadcast information. On X, I'm at LaNave Marco, and I'll be posting links there to content throughout the season.
Great. Thank you so much again. Really appreciate your time. The insight is great. The different perspective, the different voice, really cool. And thanks for playing along with my little game on spring training stats. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that was fun. You picked out some good ones.
Have a good day.
See you soon. Go Guards.